Surya's plot. Let us go back to the ancient times when the epic Mahabharata was set. A key event in the tale is when the Pandavas with Kunti and Draupadi were sent to live in the forest by their cousins, the Kauravas. The Pandavas left, but the eldest Yudhishthir was worried about how they would feed themselves and all the guests who would visit them. A worried Yudhishthir went to Dhaumya, who was their guru, to ask for a solution. Dhaumya smiled comfortingly. In the old days, Surya, the sun god, took care of all living things. All life depends on Surya's rays. Pray to him for assistance. I will teach you the mantra that you must recite. Yudhishthir went to the river and picking some flowers stood in the shallows facing the sun. With single-minded devotion, he prayed and Surya appeared. The sun stood before Yudhishthir, holding out a copper vessel. I have brought what you need, he said. This pot will feed as many people as are present at a meal, and the contents will not be exhausted until Draupadi, your wife, has eaten. You will regain your kingdom after 13 years have passed, he pronounced, and then disappeared. Yudhishthir stepped out of the water and touched Dhaumya's feet with reverence before handing the vessel to his wife, Draupadi. Draupadi cooked some food in a pot. The guests were first served, and then the Pandavas ate. Only then did she sit down to eat, and the pot remained full till she finished her meal. Their most pressing problem taken care of, the Pandavas made their way to Kamakhya, a forest filled with delightful retreats eminently suitable for a prolonged sojourn. Duryodhan, the eldest of the Kauravas, still saw the Pandavas as a threat to him, even though they had now lived in the forest. Thus, he spent hours plotting and scheming to get rid of them. Opportunity presented itself when the grumpy sage Durvasa arrived at the palace with 10,000 disciples. As was his wont, he graciously informed his reluctant hosts that he would be staying a while. The Rishi's demands kept the Kauravas on their toes. They dared not rouse his famed temper and bring a curse upon themselves. Durvasa always exercised promptitude when it came to cursing. The Rishi did just as he pleased. He came and went as the mood took him, demanded food at odd hours, refused it when it was brought, and expected prompt service all the time. But Duryodhan waited on him uncomplainingly, and the Rishi, pleased, granted him a blessing. This was precisely what Duryodhan had been aiming for, and he almost crowed with joy. Yudhishthir, the eldest of the Kuru grandsons, is living in the forest with his brothers, he said, looking properly concerned. If you and your disciples will honor him by visiting him, he will be greatly blessed. That is the only blessing I carve for. The princess of Panchal, Draupadi, rests after feeding everyone. That will be the best time for you to visit them, he added with masterly cunning. Duryodhan knew that Surya's vessel would be empty once Draupadi had eaten, and the Pandavas would be hard pressed to feed Durvasa and his disciples, who would certainly demand hot food on their arrival. And when none was forthcoming, the Rishi would certainly pronounce a curse which would settle the Pandavas for good. This vision filled Duryodhan with pleasant warmth, but he betrayed none of his unholy delight. I will certainly visit Pandu's sons, Durvasa said, pleased by Duryodhan's thoughtfulness. As soon as the Rishi departed, Duryodhan told his brothers, Karna and Dushasan, of what was planned. They laughed uproariously. Let us see how the Pandavas wriggle out of this one. Durvasa's curse will do for us what we can't do for ourselves. Rishi Durvasa and his 10,000 disciples arrived in the Pandavas' hermitage when Draupadi was resting. The Pandavas touched Durvasa's feet with reverence and offered him a seat, but the Rishi decided that he first wanted to bath in the river. Have a hot meal ready for us when we return, he said, walking off, with his disciples trailing behind his path. The Pandavas were now in a dilemma, and when Draupadi was informed that hot meal had been demanded by the Rishi, she was utterly surprised. How on earth am I going to feed him and his 10,000 disciples? I have already eaten, she cried in vexation. As Draupadi was hopelessly wondering how she could avert the quick-tempered Rishi's wrath, Krishna walked in. Hope surged up when she saw him. Durvasa is here and Surya's vessel is empty, she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. How can I feed him and his disciples when there is no food? Give me something to eat and go and rest, said Krishna, as if he had not heard Draupadi. But I have just told you there isn't anything to eat, Draupadi cried in exasperation, and the Rishi will return in a moment. This is no time to palter, Krishna said smiling. I am hungry and I want something to eat. Fetch Surya's vessel. Draupadi handed him the copper pot, wondering if his senses had gone wandering. Krishna peered in and, spotting a grain of rice clinging to the side of the pot, fished it out, popping it into his mouth, murmured, May Hari, the soul of the universe, be satisfied. Then turning to Draupadi with twinkling eyes, he said, Now let the Rishi come. Rishi Durvasa and his 10,000 disciples, bathing in the river, suddenly found themselves feeling satisfied to a point of illness, as if they had eaten themselves at a feast. They looked at each other in utter bewilderment and went to their guru. We told the king to prepare a meal, and now we are no longer hungry, they said. We feel full, though we have eaten nothing. Durvasa was equally surprised by this strange phenomena, but had his wits about him. We cannot ask kings to prepare meals and then refuse to eat, he said, thinking rapidly. Yudhishthir has enormous aesthetic powers, and if provoked could reduce us to ashes with a glance. So the best thing to do is to slip away quietly. I simply cannot sit down to eat now. Hastily dressing themselves, Durvasa, along with his 10,000 disciples, sneaked out of the hermitage without the Pandavas being the wiser. Yudhishthir sat awaiting Durvasa, and when the Rishi failed to show up after a considerable length of time, asked Bhim to go down the river and fetch him. Surveying the banks, Bhim saw no Rishi nor his disciples, and told his eldest that Durvasa had vanished. The Pandavas, familiar with Durvasa's eccentric ways, decided to wait through the night. Certainly he would return at some inconvenient hour, demanding a meal. "We will sit up," Yudhishthir said. "He could return any moment." Krishna entered their chamber and, seeing their morose faces, grinned broadly. "Durvasa won't come back because he fears your displeasure. Draupadi told me about your little dilemma, and I ate what was left in Surya's vessel, and his hunger died." Yudhishthir smiled at Krishna with heartfelt gratitude. This legendary copper vessel was given to Yudhishthir by Surya, which offered a never depleting supply of food to the Pandavas every day. It was called Akshay Patra, which meant the inexhaustible vessel, and it was given on a blessed day that all of us celebrate as Akshay Tritiya. Hope you have liked our article. Please be subscribed for more notable information. Thank you.